G'day everyone, it's Marty Mariner here from the Marty Mariner Show. It's A-League season starting. The men's competition kicks off this evening. Finally, seems to have been the longest off-season ever. I think it'll be a really interesting season this year with the some teams have travelled pretty well in the Australia Cup and have had some really decent form going through to the final in the case of MacArthur and other competitive games. And other teams have just been relying on trials against each other and playing against other A-League teams, but also some local sides. So been some interesting build-ups to this season. So it'll be really interesting to see how it will start. And it'll be pretty hard to predict, I think, the first couple of weeks of the season. But we will give it a crack today. I'll give you my score predictions for each of the first round games and also give you my top six. And that is really tough to pick. I think, honestly, this year, I think there's probably 9 sides that could probably competitively make that top six. I think it'll be a really interesting competition. The first game of the season kicks off tonight in Melbourne, where Melbourne City play Western in a grand final rematch. What a big game that is to kick off the season. I think it'll be a really tough game. Western looking pretty decent again. Not too many changes to their side. Melbourne City, a bit indifferent in the trials, but there's quality all the way through the squad. For me, it's going to be a close one. I think it'll be quite a cagey affair. Melbourne City won't want to lose to Western, and Western may want to try and push their dominance to show that the grand final wasn't a fluke last year. I think there'll only be a goal in it, and I think it'll be for Melbourne City. I'm tipping a Melbourne City 1-0 win. Tomorrow, up in Brisbane, the Roar will take on MacArthur. MacArthur, fresh off their Australia Cup win, played quite well in the final in what was quite an indifferent at times atmosphere in Sydney, but it was a game that they did what they had to do to win the game, and they lifted the trophy, and you can't deny that. Brisbane have been a bit on and off in the trials. They have had some decent results, and I think that they're going to be one of those teams that if they can actually string some games together this year, you know, I think they can cause some trouble. I don't think people seem to be writing Brisbane off quite a fair bit, and I don't know if that's going to be the case. Because it's in Brisbane, I've got a feeling this is going to be a really tight one, and I'm tipping a 1-1 draw. Yes, I know the Mariners will be playing the Jets at the same time, and well, look, let me think about that one. We'll come to that one last. Later on that evening in Sydney at the brand new stadium there, the Victory are coming to call. Sydney, Big Blue, straight up, brand new stadium. Sydney will not want to lose their first game in the brand new stadium to anyone, let alone the Melbourne Victory. Melbourne Victory would love nothing more than to beat Sydney at their home ground in the very first time that a game's been played there in the A-League. I think it's going to be a bit full on this game. I think Sydney will need to come out and match Melbourne with aggression. I think they need to fire up. They've come off a relatively disappointing season last year, and I think they'll need to try and make their mark early, and what a way to do it. As I said, first home game in a brand new stadium. But I think Melbourne Victory are going to be too strong, and I think they're going to come away with the chocolates. 2-0 to Melbourne Victory for me. On Sunday, over in New Zealand, Wellington will be taking on Adelaide. How good is it that Wellington will be back playing games in New Zealand? I know they had a couple at the end of last year, but let's keep fingers crossed that they'll be playing their whole season. All of their home games will be at home this year for them. Adelaide have shown some good form in the off season, but again, trial games mean nothing until the real thing. I think Wellington would love to get off to a great start. I think that crowd's going to be absolutely pumping for the season to kick them off in the right way. I'm actually going to tip a Wellington 1-0 little sneaky win for the yellow and black over there. And the last game of the round, the Wanderers versus Perth. Two teams that I really don't know how they're going to travel this year. We're going to have to see them for 5-6 rounds to actually see how they shape up. Big changes and players coming and going in both clubs. It's going to be a very interesting affair. It's a very hard one to pick. I think the Wanderers are going to get there. I think it'll be maybe a 1-0 win to the Wanderers. But I'm very interested to see how how Perth shape up. I know it's away from home, but they've had some, as I said, some changes in their squad, and the Wanderers again, it's been all change in there as well. So be an interesting game. Be a good one for the neutral, I think, to kind of gauge how these guys might actually go during the season. But yep, let's go with a Wanderers win 1-0. And of course, I have to finish up with the F3 derby at the Central Coast Stadium, the Mariners versus the Jets. Fingers crossed the weather stays good for us. It hasn't rained as much, touch wood, as they predicted it might so far. So hopefully all will be well. Look, I've got to tip a Mariners win, but I think it's going to be a toughie. It will be a very, as I've said before, sort of very cagey. I don't think either side is going to dominate the game. I'm tipping a 2-1 Mariners win. But again, a lot of bias in that. But I actually think we've been playing quite well. We've had good performances in the trials. And they've been seeing them at training the other day looking very, very sharp, as I know Newcastle have as well. So I think it'll be a cracker of a game. I just hope the weather stays fine for it. But yeah, it'll be the Mariners for me, 2-1. And now trying to pick a top 6, really tough. Long off season, a lot of trials. You can't really pick too much in there. You've got to get to the real deal. But I think you've really got to base yourself on the squads that these clubs have assembled and try and juggle it as much as you can. For me, Melbourne victory will come in first. I just can't see, with the strength of their squad, I just think they're going to be too strong. But it'll be interesting. I think everyone will be gunning for them again, particularly the team that I've picked to come second being Melbourne City. I think that Melbourne City will be a bit hurt after not getting the chocolates, as it were, in that grand final last year. I think they'll be gunning early in the season, so I can see them coming in second. And third, I'm going to tip Western. Won the grand final last year. You can't discount their performance at the end of the year. Aloisi had them playing some really good football. So I can't see any reason why that would drop with the squad that they're carrying into the season. So for me, it's the third spot for them. Fourth, I'm going to throw in the mighty Central Coast Mariners. Look, it's been all change at the station. There's been a lot of changes within the club, but the group that is there now is a relatively young squad. But if they fire, they're going to cause all sorts of damage, and they get consistent and their confidence starts to raise. I have no doubt that they can compete with the best of them. Cummings up front has been an absolute legend, and especially these games leading up to the World Cup, that guy has got a point to prove. He wants to be on that plane, as does Gary Qual, and with the quality that is around them and the new signings, and of course the main man returning, Mr. Danny Vukovic in goals, skippering the side. I think we're going to surprise a few people again. Already seeing ladders where we're coming last again. I don't know how that's going to happen. But for me, I tip us in the top 4, and I think we'll scrape into that 4th spot. Fifth for me, maybe a bit of a bolter, but I just think they're going to do it. West Sydney Wanderers. I think they've actually assembled a pretty decent squad. And for me, it's important for them is these games leading to the World Cup. If they can get a good start, I think they're going to be very competitive. So it wouldn't surprise me if Rudin gets these guys fired up a little bit. And in this run into the World Cup, I think I can see them picking up a lot of points. So for me, it's 5th spot to the Wanderers this year. And finally, MacArthur. They've just won the Australia Cup. They've got some quality players out there. They just look like a side that will be both consistent in the week-to-week picking up points, as well as having those performances where they'll just play teams off the park. I can see them having the capability of doing both of that. And to me, that means that they'll round out the top 6. And so, of course, my biggest bold prediction is I don't think Sydney will make the top 6 this year. They probably will now. They will probably come first and win the whole lot to prove me wrong, this little old fella from the Central Coast. But to me, I just haven't been convinced. I've seen their trial results, as I have with the others, but I just think with their squad, I just have a lot of doubt about it. So it's more so with the quality of the other squads coming through. I mean, I haven't tipped Adelaide in that top 6 either. Haven't tipped Perth in there, and they're more than capable of being in there. So much respect to those guys too. But I just think Sydney, I don't know, I just have a feeling it's a poor start. Could see more changes at the club, and I think that they may well miss out on the top 6 this year. Well, there have been my score predictions and top 6 predictions for the season. I'll give you my score predictions week in, week out as the season is unveiled. See how close I get or how close I don't get may well be more the case. Don't forget too that this channel has moved now to this new address. So if you previously subscribed to the channel and said, yeah, Marty, I've already subscribed, just double check that you have. We had a bit of an issue with our good friends at YouTube, and all of our subscriptions went, as did a few videos. The videos are coming back, but the subscriptions don't. So if you have subscribed in the past, please make sure that you've subscribed again. There's that little button in the corner that makes it nice and easy for you. And we've had a lot of people already done it, which is fantastic. But please, if you subscribed previously, click on that button. Want to get you back on board as soon as we possibly can. That's our predictions for this week. I'll catch up with you next week, where we'll have an episode of The Grumpy Old Men. Dean and Todd return. We're going to review the derby. Can't wait for that one with Todd. Dean's going to talk about the Wellington game against Adelaide. We'll review the scores that came in all the other games. And we are joined by a very special guest. Mr. Laurie McKinnon will be with us next week. So make sure you keep your eyes out again. Another good reason to subscribe to the channel so you can get on board with that one. Other than that, we will catch up with you very, very soon. Enjoy your weekend of football. It's been the MartyMariner Show.